Howdy, 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 everyone. How's everyone doing? I'm just playing with my switcher here. Welcome to the ComicBase Livestream. I'm your host, Pete Bickford. We're coming at you from Franklin, Tennessee, just outside Nashville. Hope everyone's doing well today. We have a lot to get through today, and I've got a hard break at once. So the focus of this one is going to be your questions, so please post them in the live stream chat if you haven't already, and I will hit as many of these as possible. Some folks have reached out to me already with a number of ones I'm going to get it to, but please post yours, and if you could tag them with @ComicBase TV, it'll help make them pop out so I know to, their comment directly posted toward me, and it'll help me scan through things as we get going here. Okay, quick around the horn here. Just want to get things set up. Hail to Rob and Oro and Richard. Toledo, 74 degrees in Toledo. For what's, by the way, in Franklin, we are actually having a nice, beautiful, it's almost like a fall day. It's not burning hot. It's not blazing, sweltering humidity. It's just one of those happy to be alive days. So I'm happy to share it with everyone. Okay, Oro, already some questions going on. We'll hit those in a sec. Hail Greg and Steve Dassinger, nice to see. And Mike, hey, great to see everyone again. And, I'm hearing no sound. Okay, we had sound too. I got sound coming in here. Okay, Richard says redact that. Okay, man. Richard, you scared me, man. All right, I'm just going to check the levels here. Give them a little bit of a boost. Is that a little better for everyone? I'm a little bit hotter than I was beforehand. The levels look good to me. I hope they all sound good to everyone else. Okay. All right, well, let's get to it. So we're going to be talking about, first of all, comic-based news. We'll be doing some industry news and how do I questions in particular. Is in how to do something that you want to do with comic-based, but you're just like, I just don't get how this works. Please post those. That's the theme of this show. And but first, before we get going, please like and subscribe. Smash that like and subscribe button. It does help, especially in the early minutes of the show, to get YouTube to actually cough more than 4% of the notifications out to folks so that they know that we're streaming. So please, if you do that, it would be a lovely thing to do. All right, let's get to it. Comic-based news. So build 20.0.2.1854 is the current build, and it fixes one additional potential source of it not remembering your breakdown type on the collection stats. But other than that, very, very minor. That said, if you haven't done so beforehand, it's probably worth getting because it's going to be quiet on the update front from us for a while because we're getting, we really turned the corner. We're working on the next version of ComicBase. So for ComicBase 2021, 1854 is going to be should be reasonably stable for a while in terms of if not a lot is going to change after that until we go to the new things. So probably worth looking at, and you see it in all the other shows. You can get to it either by going under My Account registrations and just downloading the software again, or if you set your preferences so that it is checking for interim builds and you check for updates, you'll see that one automatically. Okay, other things going on. We had a huge update this last week. We had over 8,000 new pictures submitted. Thank you so much to the folks who did all that, as well as 6,000 new issues. 6,000 new price changes, and I want to say something like 4,000 new issues. It was just crazy how much stuff came down the pipe this last week, and so we're hitting some pretty cool looking numbers. We'll wrap some of that up into the 20.0.3 build if there, 21.0.3 build if we do one. If not, that'll definitely become the core of the next version of ComicBase. The Q3 Blu-Ray images have also now been posted. This is after cleaning, so we did pull out all the ones that weren't associated with an active issue, which dumped our count on the pictures for that a little bit, but even then, I want to say there's something like 741,000 pictures on the Q3 build, the Q3 Blu-ray images. All those are available for download now if you have the 4K archive edition, or if you just go and are pulling down pictures bit by bit every week as you go. That's certainly the less painful way to download those, but Those images have been updated now. Well, I'm going to delay slightly posting updates to the archive edition picture discs. I'm probably going to wait till Q3 actually occurs, in the next few weeks, for those, just because it allows me to go through a little bit of extra fine tuning on those before we have to, figure out how to slot 700, it could be 50,000 images by them onto 4 DVD sized images, which is always a bigger trick than getting them onto the Blu-rays. Okay, on that, industry news. All right, so I'll just lead with the breaking news as we do this one. John McAfee, you know him, possibly loathe him from his antivirus software, but realistically, when he started the company, it was a pretty lean, mean antivirus machine, but since then it has bloated out significantly after he left the company. But he was one of the original Tech Valley, Silicon Valley, just, I don't know what you'd call him. I wouldn't call him a titan, but he was definitely a notable and interesting character. He made a ton of money figuring out how to be a little bit better or more interesting than Norton as far as protecting your computer from viruses. He ran away from the Valley. I want to say 2008 is when he sold out his stake. McAfee then became really, I'd say, a significantly different company afterwards. He ran as a libertarian candidate at one point. He's been outspoken and very... let's just say he has a very high self-opinion of himself, or at least he did, until facing charges of tax evasion in the U.S. He was just found dead in his Spanish cell mere days after he was going to be, he apparently had lost an appeal which says he was going to be extradited to the U.S. This is breaking news. It's going to be really interesting following this one. But I don't know. Jeffrey Epstein does not stray. It comes to mind pretty easily for me. We'll see what happens on this one, but it's going to be an interesting one to follow. He's an interesting guy on so many levels. I'm not going to say he's an angel or a devil, but I'm going to say he definitely was one of the guys who kept tech interesting. All right, on to news that's a little bit closer to home. Action Comics. Interesting. I'm going to credit Rob Weinstein for pointing to this one. Please switch over to channel number 2 here. There we go. Excellent. 3 different copies, well, I'm going to say copies of it, came up for auction this last week. One of them, an Action Comics, it's a restored near mint 9.0, with some moderate restoration to it. They're estimating it might go for $3.1 million. That's up on Comic Connect. We'll see what actually happens. But that's coming up. It's a lovely copy. If you have the means and you're not doing anything else with your $3.1 million, by all means, I suggest you check it out before the auction closes on the 25th. And also my birthday is coming up. Just saying. But more interestingly, down the auction this was interesting news items. It wound up being less interesting news at the end of the day, but it was certainly interesting. We talked about this one before, is individual pages of comic books are starting to come up for auction. So this is, I believe, page 6 or page 7 of Action number 1. It's obviously been bound at one point, stapled into something, chewed to heck, and the only thing left is that page. And they thought this thing might go for $250,000. As it turned out, slightly more, down to earth. It wound up actually selling for... Let me go to the actual results. Oh, come on, we got it here. There we are. Wound up actually selling for a mere $5,755, which... honestly, I can kind of get. It's it's a kind of a cool piece of art. You could hang it on your wall and say, like, I got a page of Action Comics number 1. But I certainly wouldn't pay more than $5,755 for it. Again, it's like, as a whim, sure, absolutely, go for it. As an investment, who knows? But the one that takes the cake, this one is the whole reason that we're even talking about this one right now, is that wasn't the only Action Comics that was out there. No, they also are featuring a Ziploc bag. It's probably a Mylar Ziploc bag of cover chips that they are alleging are from Action Comics number 1. I don't know, from the age of the cover, it could be. If you guys have a really, really good, eye or whatever else, maybe you could match this one here. TT, a god, something. That's could be from an action number one. Either way, it looks like something someone pulled out of either their hamster cage or their shredder, and they were sitting there going, "Well, we're auctioning it. We'll see what it goes for." And as it turns out, cover chips from an Action Comics number one sold for $175 with 23 bids. So there's your comic market, man. What are you going to make of it? I got nothing. I feel like I have nothing else to say about that one other than it's crazy. So that was it's Comic Connect. Whoa, and let me close that one so we don't double up our own audio here. All right, so let me do a quick check of the chat, and then let's get on to some other news here. Ages Camp, hail chat. Steve Dazzler says, sounds fine. Thank God for that. Okay, let's see here. Oh, and Greg Heck wants to let everyone know that the forums of the Atomic Avenue message boards are activated now. You can post about future suggestions, comics market, book suggestions, and magazine market. All right, good on the Atomic Avenue guys for that. Oro says 1851, but it's updating 1854 right now. Yes, we posted just before showtime. Yes, and Age of the Camp says upgrade to 4K versions. I have to tell my wife it's time to upgrade your monitors. Damn straight. I gotta say, 4K monitors for the desktop are lovely, especially for reading anything with type on it. The extra pixels are just really, really pretty. So definitely suggest that. Let's see here. Little Boy Design says, I have about 20 plus signed Jim Lee comics. How does ComicBase value them over other comic book artists? For Northern California, about 20K plus comics, mostly Gold and Silver Age. The short answer on autographs is we can't give you a number. I mean, it's just, at the point where you've taken a comic and you've essentially made it unique-y, there's just not enough data in the universe to give you a price on it. And the other thing is with comics in general, autographs vary quite a bit in terms of whether they're even considered an addition to the comic or they're even a defect. Some people literally, depending on how unpopular the person is signing it, will say like, well, yeah, you got to mark that one down because it's got writing on it, even if the person writing it was the guy who drew or wrote on the comic book. Some signatures clearly more valuable than others. Jack Kirby signatures definitely brings a premium. Stan Lee's, Steve Ditko would probably be worth a fair amount. Jim Lee has signed a lot of things in his life. So outside of marketed editions where it comes pre-signed and they really sold the pre-signed copy as a collectible itself, as its own edition, it's really hard to know whether at all a signature added to the value, and if so, by how much. What I would do myself, though, with any comic that you had signed is take your best shot of what you would part with it for, and then go ahead and double click on that comic book and lock the price. So on that individual copy, not for everything in your collection, but let's say in general you like getting updates for all the values in your collection. Say for that particular issue, that particular autographed copy, if there's a checkbox in the detail page called lock price, and that will prevent the update from changing the price of it for you. So it won't price it as if it was just another copy of Uncanny X-Men 438 or whatever. But yeah, unfortunately, that is really the limitation of a modern price guide, is we really can't give you any kind of real guide as to what a signed version of XYZ would be. It's just not enough data. So, but thank you for the question. That's a good one. Okay, let's see, and other people obviously got to it even ahead of me. All right, scrolling. Yeah, Kathy D says Hamster Cage is right on the Action Comics, no doubt. And let's see here. Okay, and All right, so let's hit Oro's question right at the top here. Right at the beginning. Oro had pointed out so he has. All right, he says I have difficulty transferring the issues from comics to magazines and/or book sections when the title is the same in both sections. He says at the transfer screen I only see one title option and no way to choose which section to send the issues to. Works fine when the titles are different in different sections. And you said 2 of 2. Oh, 2 of 3. No, you started as 1 of 3, and then it became 2 of 2. All right. Classic release summer day in Minneapolis. All right, excellent. So let's show some of that. I'm gonna do it with a Scratch database so we can show it off. Let me go ahead and open something up, and and we'll do it with a Livestream Pete's database. All right, sure. Okay, let's switch over to that. Throw on the picture-in-picture so we can see my smiling mug trying to keep up with this. All right, so let's say that I had, let me see, there was actually one the other day which came up. It was Art of something or other, but let's say that, here, I know, it was Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Let's see, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. There we are. Guidebook to the Marvel Universe, Season 3, Marvel, if I can find, Season 3 Declassified. Okay, so this is a comic. This is a comic book which, upon further review, because I actually got a hold of a copy of the Season 1, you looked at it and say, yeah, there's actually no comics in here. This is actually a book, so it should have been listed as a book. So what you would typically do if you ever get caught in that situation, and most of the time people get caught in the situation, the person is us. You'll typically get this stuff just as part of an update, and it's not a big deal. So what you would do is you would come up under the edit menu, and you would say change media type. And then you would go change the media type to, and you get a choice of whatever things it isn't. Right? So you could say it's a book, you could say it's a magazine. In this case, it's a book. It's a slipcased book. And then it will give you a warning. It says, look, if you want to change it to a book, it's going to change everything we can match, and there might be a few things we can't match. So, for instance, going from a comic book to a book, books don't have ISSN number. They don't have... like Marvel stock number, Diamond stock numbers. They don't have ISSN numbers or ISBN. They do have ISBN numbers. They don't have cover inkers, or cover, so forth is one of their fields. But they do have a lot of other things. And going from book, say, to magazine or book to comic, there are other fields that exist only in books and not, such as the forward or the translator or the introduction, whoever did those things, which aren't fields in those other media types. And so those things we can't transfer, but everything else we can. So I'm going to say go ahead and transfer this one, though, and it's going to pull everything it can transfer over and make it into a book. All right, so I do that. You see the background changes. You'll see it's now listed under books, right? So done and done, right? And now if I went and we're looking for Season 3 Declassified, 3 Declassified, one little trick over here is if you ever do see two of the same thing, you'll notice that down at the bottom here, it'll say whether it's a book or not. All right. Now, the question that Oro had, on the other hand, is he was saying, I'm having trouble if there already was a title there. So let's go ahead and make a collision on purpose. So, all right. So there's already a book called A Marvelous Life. All right. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and apparently this was a thing from Stanley. All right. So I am going to go ahead and make a new title which conflicts with it as a comic. And just trying to think, is there anything that involves even less typing than that? Probably not. All right, let's go ahead and do it. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new comic. Oops, sorry, not a new book, a new comic. And I'm going to call it Marvelous Life, comma, You gotta kind of get down with the whole zen of putting the articles at the end there, and then it flips them around automatically. But at least that way, that's how you would enter in something with an the, or an. You only put it as at the end there. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's say it was I said it was really a comic book, and I'm going to give it a $3.99 cover price, whatever the thing is, right? All right. And so I'm going to go ahead and whoops, and now it's giving me grief right now. Says had trouble seeing foreign constraint key entered, and what's trying to do right there is it's honestly it's trying to keep me from doing the thing that I had already done, which is it's trying to prevent me from naming something that's exactly the same as before. It does try to prevent you from creating things that already exist by the exact same name. But if they already were in the database, so that's a complete fail of a demo right now. But if it already was in the database, like if there already was a Legionnaires 3, and I tried, as a magazine, say, and I tried to transfer it in, it would typically say, hey, there's already a title there called that. Do you want to transfer the content? And if so, it would try to move all the content from issues 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., into that other title and merge the quantities and so forth. That's what should be happening for you, or if something different is happening for you, if you wouldn't mind, just step through it with tech support at comicbase.com. Just give them maybe a link to your database and let them know what they got to do to reproduce your problem. But typically what it will do is it will merge your data over to the new title, and then it will delete the other title if you ever change the title on that one. But yeah, it does it does try to keep you from entering new things when there already is a title by that exact name, because even though you could have titles, I could have a magazine called Legionnaires 3. I could have, in a book named Legionnaires 3 as well as the comic book named Legionnaires 3. It does make the world very confusing, and so even though we try to separate those by the like for instance, we used to have Playboy used to be listed under comic books, because once upon a time there only was comic books, and so when we became like a when it became when we added magazines and books to the database, we had to add in the part down here where you could differentiate the type if it was named the same. But we do everything in our power to discourage that. But if you're having trouble, give us a call, and we will certainly step through it and see if we can't fix it for you. Sorry about the trouble on that one. All right, let's check the chat and see how else we are doing. All right, scrolling. H. DeCam says, Pete, my wife said naughty words to you about the monitors. Honestly, I have a lot to... if you're going to upgrade your computer setup, and I'm being legit just for a second. I mean, not just... I don't get paid by Best Buy when I sell monitors. But if you are going to... They've actually done productivity studies, and they say if you are going to try to improve your productivity with a computer, really if you haven't got, a decent monitor already, having a bigger monitor, like if you're fighting for a space on a tiny monitor, one of the best things you could do to actually become more productive at your computer is get a bigger monitor or get 2 monitors, because it gives you a place to keep multiple windows open at the same time and switch between them without having to constantly open, close, and shuffle stuff. It really takes down a lot of the load of your computer. Now, it does add a certain amount of if you go for something as crazy as I've got right now, with you've got 3 monitors going, and one of them is using this double duty as a video monitor for a podcast. It can add a certain amount of confusion of where did I leave that that screen. But realistically, if you're going especially from like one small monitor to like a 4K monitor, like a larger monitor like that, honestly, one of the better things you can do for yourself in terms of like you're legit getting more out of your computer. Beyond that, I'd say anything that if you find that you're actually waiting for something legitimately on a computer, such that it takes you out of your stream of consciousness. So if there's just something that just you're always waiting an extra 2-3 seconds and you find your mind wandering onto other things as you're using a machine, that would be, I'd say, what I would let guide me as to what I would want to address in terms of upgrading my machine, whether it's waiting on a hard disk or it's waiting on a processor and so forth. It'll rarely be your graphics card. Graphic cards are really cool, but unless you're doing a lot of gaming or graphic rendering, things like that, they tend to be one of those things that are really nice to have and really not needed to have a really fast one. Same thing goes with RAM. RAM is rarely these days the cause of why you're waiting on stuff with your computer. Typically, it's going to be your hard drive would be number one. Get an SSD if you haven't already. I would tell anybody, never buy a computer these days which doesn't have an SSD, a solid state disk drive. I saw them just. I want to say this morning I saw NVMe, which is the very fastest, the very coolest kind of SSDs. 1 gigabyte ones were going for like $108 on B&H Photo this morning. There is no worldly reason why I would save myself $20-30 and get a 1 terabyte regular hard drive in order to save the $30, but at the same time I'd be making my computer's hard drive something like 10 times slower. That's nuts. You absolutely get an SSD, get the biggest one you can afford, would be my advice for folks on that one. After that, I'd say look at processor speed. It can't hurt. But if you've got 8 gigs or more on your computer, don't worry about it. You're probably fine, unless you're doing something extraordinary like a lot of heavy-duty film and video. Maybe you're running tons and tons of heavy graphic applications at once. Maybe then it makes sense to go higher than that. But you won't see a big bump in general by boosting your memory past 8 and certainly past 16. My current rig, I threw 32 gigs in there just because I could. Honestly, I couldn't say it's ever helped. It's when you have your computer running in the modern world, when your computer's starting to run out of memory, it will start shuffling your disk to make room for more things. And so unless you have a single thing that won't fit into your available memory, you're never actually going to run out of memory. It's just you'll run your hard drive a little harder is all it comes down to. And if you've got something like an SSD as your hard disk store, it's going to be so fast in general, it isn't going to help that much. So anyway, that's about it. So all right, enough talking about monitors. All right. Okay, a lot of discussion on that. I told you of knowledge. All right. Wow, the chat is off the chat is off the hook today. All right, Pete of Mike ever sold. Keep it up. All right, moving on. All right, so this actually I had as a tech news item, but because it actually is relevant, I'm going to, in it, because it becomes the first thing that I had a how to do it, I'm going to use this one after all. All right, so Microsoft this week put out a quality fix, as they put it, a quality fix, which they were really cagey about. Typically, whenever they put out a patch, they list a KB and then a long number. KB stands for knowledge base, and that knowledge base article, if you like reading geek, will tell you in great detail all the things they fixed in that patch. This one, and I can verify this one, they basically said make stuff better, and then that they gave no details on it whatsoever. But I will say it did fix the number one annoyance I've had with Windows 21 H1, which is the latest version, the latest major upgrade of Windows. It's Windows 2021. H1 is for the first half. It's their big semi-yearly update. And the very first thing that it did is it absolutely destroyed the notification area on my computer. What it would do is it would take all these icons in the bottom right here and glom them on top of each other, and then they'd live like that for a while. I could pass my mouse over them and they would redraw, and then they would go off the screen and disappear. And I've uninstalled and reinstalled video drivers and system boot images and whatever else. This happens in particular when you have a multi-monitor setup, or you have your monitor set to a certain magnification. I have not seen it happen when your monitor is set to 100% magnification, but if you have, like as I do, I have a 4K monitor which I set at 150% so that everything isn't super tiny, and I have it sitting next to a 100% monitor, which is the one you're looking at right here. The notification area on my monitor that had the magnification on it, this would just go away, and it made me nuts because at this point in my life, I don't wear a watch much. I mean, I literally would have to go and look over at my phone to see what time it is because I'm so used to glancing down at the right and seeing that, just that info, as well as it, getting access to Sidekick and Dropbox and all the other things you do during the day. When that goes away, you start realizing, wow, I really use that area a lot, and it really sucked. Anyway, so yes, if that has happened to you or anything like it, go to Windows Update. Just go up under here, Windows Update, check for updates, and when you pull it onto your right monitor, then it will tell you, if you haven't done it already, that, and let me go ahead and get the number on it, the quality update. There have been 31 of these installed, but yes, the 2021-06 update to Windows 10 version 21H2 for 64-bit systems. Knowledge base 402.3057, which is absolutely useless. But yes, that's the particular update which fixed the notification area fix. So if you had that problem, definitely download the update. I give it my highest possible recommendation because it solved what was going to be the I was literally considering reinstalling Windows in order to get this sucker back. So that I'm glad that that worked out. All right, let me check the chat real quick. And yes, Agent Camp says 32 gigs of RAM makes you feel like a bigger man. Well, it does, but you know, it doesn't actually help much. All right, so any word on selling on Shopify? I already mailed you info on my stores test. Yes, thank you for that, Aaron. Yes, we are planning on making that a feature of ComicBase, the next version. I will be reaching out to you on that. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit, but it'll be at least a few weeks. But once we get most of the other things for the next version locked in, expect to hear from me later on in the summer. Thank you very much for that. All right. So first question on the list of things here, and by the way, please post if you have things that you want to. How do I? Please post them in the chat. If you could tag them at ComicBase TV, that would help me find them very quickly, and we'll take as many as we can. So very first thing is, people said, ask me is, how do I remove items from my recent databases list? So, all right. So if we come up here, and I'm going to try to magnify this. So I know I'm playing with fire here, but bear with me as I do this. So, all right, let's see if this works. So, if I come up here and I say File, and I go to Recent Databases, you will see that I have a crap ton of databases listed here. This is every database I ever deal with, just being me. Your database list, if you're a very fortunate person, has one thing in it, in which case this tip is not for you. But if you have different things in here and you want to get rid of them, this one is automatically going to remember the last, I think it's 10 databases you've opened, in which case, so you can get to them very quickly just by flipping over to them. But let's say you want to get rid of some of the ones in here. There isn't like a great way of getting rid of them, but there's a very simple way. Let's say I want to get rid of C users, Peter Bickford, Dropbox, and then Mike Zakar had sent me a database that I looked at one point. If I want to get rid of that from the list, all I gotta do is go to that path, go to wherever that database is, move it, change its name, do anything at all to it so that ComicBase can't find it. If you want, drag it out to your desktop. And then the next time you launch ComicBase, it will say, hey, that database isn't where I last saw it. It'll automatically pull it out of the list. So what I would do just is general cleanup. If I want to do kind of just clean up on my stuff, you could do a lot worse than just come out, make a new folder on your desktop. I call something like old databases. Drag the ones you don't like from wherever they are into old databases, exit ComicBase, launch it again, and you'll see that that list gets immediately cleaned up, and it'll only have your regular database in it. By the way, if you're wondering, you might have seen over here that a bunch of these, I'm trying to zoom in again, a bunch of these will just have some of them will have the full name and some of them won't. It basically tells you that if there was ever a conflict in there, so it knew it had to tell you that this ComicBase DB is different than this ComicBase database right over here. So when there's a conflict, it makes sure that the second time out it gives you the full path name. But let's say I want to know the full path name of just any old database. So I'm going to open up my regular database right here. This is Pete's, and of course Roxy decided to give me an ad right now. Sweet. All right. Let's go ahead and do that. Get out of here, you stupid ad. Oh, you were kidding me. You're not going to go away? Oh, that is annoying. All right, we'll get away from that in a minute. But if I want to know where any database is, come down here under File and then Collection Statistics. And in a moment, well, it calculates all the stuff about my collection. Alright, and of course brings up on the other screen. Then come up here, and if you guys see this icon over on the right here, this is database info. If you click on him, it will give you the full path of where that database lives on your machine. So in this case, C users, Peter Bickford, documents, human computing, ComicBase databases, Pete's inventory database.cbdb. That is where this database lives from. Anytime you're wondering where the database is, just go there, and you can copy that path off. If you copy everything short of the name, everything short of the file slash, you can even paste that into Windows. It'll take you straight to that folder. But anyway, that will take you to where that database is, and you can get it from there. All right, I'm going to exit out of ComicBase, very briefly so that I can get rid of the ad that it's stuck on that window. That was really annoying. All right. Other things that we had on our list here. People asked, how do I get rid of unwanted databases from my mobile app? All right, let's bust out the mobile app. All right, so let's see here. I'm going to come here, and that's me. And now I'm going to pop over to number 8. All right, number 8 is... Come on, wake up. Swipe screen or press power key. All right, got it. All right, so let's go to here and let's launch my mobile app. All right, so when you go to the ComicBase mobile, you might have seen, and I did this right before the show, which is terrible prepping whatsoever. Let me see if I can pull a picture-in-picture on this one. Hey, I'm feeling kind of stylish right now. Sweet. All right, so if you go to the top here, again, if you're lucky, you've only got one item in that list, it's your right database, you're good to go. But if you see other databases, things that you used to have, things that you were checking in at some different point in the future, you might want to get rid of them from the list. So that certainly the item you like the best is the one that appears at the top of the list. Now, items get into that list by using them at some point in ComicBase, and if you ever do certain things like that involves talking to the server, like checking for updates or posting your comics to Atomic Avenue, at that point, if it's never seen that database before, it's going to register it as one of your known databases. So the way you get rid of that is you go to your profile, and let me see if I can pull this up without activating a window that's going to cause all the sound to echo. So let me see, give me just a second here. I'm going to throw the camera on me for just a sec as I try to figure this all out. Alright, come on. Alright. New window, great. So one of the problems with having a live stream going with the YouTube control panel up is if that window ever becomes the frontmost panel, your own sound echoes back to you as you're doing the live stream, and it's terribly confusing. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to my own profile, and excuse me a minute, just in case I need to log in or do something like that. I don't want to be showing you guys my password. All right, registration. Nope. Give me just a second. Alright. Okay, so if you go to My Account and then Profile, it will ask you to log in, and if you're logged in, then scroll down to the bottom and you will see Known Databases. It'll say the following database are associated with your account, and what you can do is any database you see but you don't like, you can just click on it, hit remove. Now, if you hit remove on all of them, no harm, no foul. What it's going to do when you remove those, it does remove any backups you saved and any reports you saved, stuff like that. But all you got to do is post your stuff to Atomic Avenue again, or post or repost your data using Sidekick, and it'll appear again. But any of these, like I had a bunch of scratch databases and temporaries and copies of this, that, and the other thing. Just dial them in here, click remove, and then when you check with the mobile app, you'll also see that they go out of the list there as well. And that gives me a nice segue into the next tip, which is, if I can flip back here, let me go ahead and launch the ComicBase app. All right, so you might see from this one that my collection has dropped in value somewhat. I've lost $5,769.97 in value since 2/16 of this year. Don't fear, guys. That just means I sold a lot of comics. The actual value of comics in general has gone up, but I've got probably 1,000 less comics than I had at the beginning of the year, so that's a good thing for me, because I wanted to kind of clear out some space in the garage, frankly. But let's say I wanted to reset this since part right over here, because this is going to remember all the times I ever checked for values since the time it began. Let's say I want a clean start on that whole thing. How do I reset that list? Well, back here on Profile, and this is on ComicBase.com, and just go to My Account and then Profile. Scroll down to the bottom, and you can say Clear Value History. And if you do that, it will clear the value history back, and then the next time you check for updates, it'll say, well, your collection's worth whatever it's worth since today. And then it will take it from there. Now, I'm going to say a perfectly valid criticism on all this stuff is, wait, Pete, this sounds really obscure, right? I mean, I'm looking in the mobile app, and why can't I manage which databases appear in the mobile app right from the mobile app? Wouldn't that make sense? And yes, it absolutely would make sense. That'd be a much better place for it. The user interface would be far superior if I could do that instead of bouncing over to the profile, the section on your website. And the answer is, Apple wouldn't let us do it. We had it in there. They made us take it out because it involved linking to a site to do something that wasn't their site, and they wouldn't approve the app unless it was in there. Google Play didn't care, but since we were having to write one version of the general interface that had to work on both things, we had to do it for the most restrictive app store. So that sucks, and I agree it is not the most wonderful thing in the world. I'm hoping, and I hope nobody from the Apple store is watching this, I'm hoping in the future that if we disguise it under a different looking icon or something silly like that, or bury it in a user generated menu, that they won't, because they actually have tools which crawl all the code in your app and all the messages, looking for things that link to other sites. I'm hoping that we can disguise that in such a way that it lets us have what I think would be the far superior interface in a future version. It seems like the implementation of this is somewhat erratic, but I know that we got rejected 3 times on this one, so I stopped fighting it with them. Anyway, that's the deal on that one. All right, I'm going to do a quick check of the chat before we hit the next question. And Greg said, Pete's on schedule, so we'll mention it now. Don't forget, we have a dedicated thread on the forum. Yes, we can request a live stream topics and demos. Absolutely. And he says, but Pete, you could say 60 cents. Pete, you're missing some badges. I am absolutely missing badges. A couple of them are just because, well, I implemented stuff, and so I'm not the person who, necessarily gets some of the things as I'm implementing them. But also, I play fair. I mean, like, I don't, I've got the same rating on Atomic Avenue that I deserve. I didn't give any, I didn't give myself any bumps on anything in particular. So yeah, this is pretty legit. That was an interesting program overlay that was going on there. That's, I have no idea why it just kind of half faded me and half didn't. That was weird. All right. So anyway, but yeah, no. I think we mentioned when we went through all the badges. I think badge like 18 or something like that is like it was going to be our social media butterfly badge, and we didn't do it right at the point where we started reconsidering how we wanted to work with social media. And honestly, I started getting a lot hinkier about my feelings about social media. You might have noticed that I don't post at all on Facebook, that's a bad spot that we will either rethink and find a home for at some point in the future, or we will reuse it for something else, and we may add new badges in the future. But no, if you see a badge in my profile, I really earned it. But if you didn't, then hey, like for instance the Commander Shepard award. I'm never going to get that badge. I'm never going to be the guy who submitted 200,000 corrections for ComicBase. I might have written 200,000 pieces of data for ComicBase, but that's not how you get points. So anyway, moving on. All right, so I said Pete's doing his max headroom imitation. Absolutely. All right, so moving on. All right, use the mobile app to look at my comics. How do I do this? All right, let's go through it. All right, so all right, let me see where we're at right now, and let's queue it up. All right, so, here's the scenario. I've got my comics, in here. I want to use the mobile app to view them on the road, and I also want to be able to use the mobile app to add comics to it. The person who asked about this one I think quite legitimately point out that, hey guys, how come you don't have a video on exactly this subject? So hopefully we'll clip this part right here, and this will be that video or something close to it, because it's a great topic. All right, so the things you will need if you want to do this. Number 1, you need a copy of ComicBase Pro Archive Edition or 4K Archive Edition. The free and the express versions will not do this, so don't try, it won't work. You also need a current subscription to ComicBase. So if your subscription lapsed last year, the mobile app will look at that and say, "Yeah, sorry guys, I'm not gonna let you get to your stuff." That's just one of the things that the mobile app. That's a limitation of the process. So, but let's assume you do have a copy of ComicBase Archive or Pro or 4K Archive, and it's active. All right, so then to get your stuff so that you can see it on your mobile stuff, then it's actually reasonably straightforward. The trick is the middleman is a little thing we like to call Sidekick. Now, let me frame up the problem to start with, right? Your data lives on your computer. Your data doesn't live on our servers unless you give it to us to put there. We very much feel that your data is your data, and it shouldn't go away the second you don't renew your subscription or something like that, right? So it lives on your computer just like, if you were writing a letter to grandma, and you're typing it in Word, that's a file on your machine. Well, your database is a file on your machine. Now, we do, on the other hand, we want to embrace all the good stuff for the internet, and we do that by having a program called Sidekick, which lets you send data to us, which then lets us do cool things that the internet lets you work with. Now, Sidekick, and I'm going to close this window here for two reasons I'll get to. Sidekick lives down here in the bottom right-hand corner of your computer. Let me go ahead and make this larger. All right, now, typically, he's this little superhero-looking dude, but typically, if you don't see the little superhero-looking dude, look for him by clicking on that up arrow right there, and it'll show you a list of all the other icons on your machine, and then you can see him there. And unfortunately, my magnifier is getting in the way of me actually doing that. So let me go ahead and reset that. Okay. But if you click the up arrow, typically you'd see all the other icons that don't have room to show in the bottom right. But this is where, if you don't see the superhero guy to start with, this is where he's hanging out. All right. Go ahead and click on Sidekick, say open, and you get to see his interface. If I can see which darn monitor I stuck him on. What are you going to bet that I stuck him on the one monitor that I can't see him on? Oh, goodness gracious me. I set this one up so beautifully. All right, let me go ahead and... Yep, that's exactly what I did, kids. All right, excuse me just a moment while I move things off the third monitor. All right. Agent DeCamp, man, I did warn you. This is one of those things that is going to get you in trouble. But we'll see if we can't fix this. Give me just a second here. How am I gonna... I know how to do this. Alright, so if I say open... Oh, man. No, it's right behind my chroma key. This is killing me. Alright, I'm not actually going to show the interface of Sidekick. I'm going to get away with it for now. But if all you guys are doing it on your... if you're playing at home, and man, I'm definitely going to have to set this up again if I'm going to do this. If you're doing this at home, if you say open, then you get to see an interface with a bunch of buttons on it that will, let you do the different functions. Or you can actually command him using the functions right in the menu right here, which is what I'm going to do right now. All right, you can go here, you can pull up his settings, all right, and you want to make sure that your database is listed under his settings. If you've never added the database to it, that'll be the very first thing it asks you to do, is to add at least one database to Sidekick. So Sidekick is a little program. His whole job in life is to do all the annoying things that you don't want to do using ComicBase. And those things are basically updating, downloading the weekly update, checking for sales and purchases, posting your stuff to your store on Atomic Avenue if you sell there, backing up to the cloud and so forth. That would suck if every time you wanted to back stuff up to the cloud, you had to go and sit there in ComicBase and say save to cloud and then wait for 5-10 minutes while it compresses the database and transmits it up. So instead, what we do is we have a little program that runs in the background, and whenever ComicBase is closed, what it will do is it will go ahead and say, oh, hey, I'm on a schedule, and this is the schedule right here. And so every day, and the next time I'm going to be doing it is at 7:29 a.m. But it could be 2 a.m. in the morning, whatever else. Every day I'm going to go and check for updates. I do not check and post for sales. I let Pete do that, apparently. I save to the cloud weekly. The next time he's going to try that is after he's done with other things at 7:29 a.m. on Monday. And it also compacts and verifies the database weekly. Anyway, it does this stuff in the background as long as ComicBase is closed. So leave your computer on, and when you're done using ComicBase for the day, close ComicBase. Then this thing will come around like a little elf in the night and handle all the scut work for you. So next time you use ComicBase, it will have done its thing. Well, one of the things it does is whenever it checks for updates, it will automatically make, it'll automatically update your totals on ComicBase.com or in the app, so you get to see what your collection's worth. And every time you save to the cloud using this one, you can have it do two really great things. First thing you can do is you can have it automatically generate reports. You can have it, in my case, I've cut this down a bit, where I only have it do a collection overview, which is like a very tight list of what I've got and don't have in my collection. So if I'm looking and say, man, I'm looking, it was Hellblazer 42 I'm missing or Hellblazer 43, I keep forgetting. I can dial over to Hellblazer, immediately find that out. Now, that got surpassed in recent years, the very latest version of the mobile app. We added in a feature that when you save to the cloud, if you're using ComicBase 21.0.2.1600 or later, which is a good reason to make sure you've got the latest version of ComicBase, it will actually go ahead and post up your database and go ahead and allow our backend to integrate your database in a way that you can browse it with the mobile app. So I don't need to rely on the pre-computed reports so much for knowing whether I've got stuff. I can actually go to that title and it'll show me what I've got. So that's why I don't use the reports as heavily as I used to. But if I did want to have just a quick, thing on my iPad or something like that I could flip through to see, what have I got, not got. That's not a bad way to go. Collection Overview is the one that really makes a difference here for me. If you want to do other ones, you can. But I'd say Collection Overview is the key one. And then the other thing is I can have it automatically sync things I want with my Atomic Avenue wish list. So if I'm in ComicBase and I say, hey, I'm trying to fill in my copies of the Eagle Moss graphic novel libraries, I just mark them all as wanted in ComicBase, and then when I back my collection up using Sidekick to the web, then Atomic Avenue automatically knows I want those and it updates its list. So that way I don't need to go to Atomic Avenue and say, hey, I'm looking for these things. Let me know when someone posts one for sale. All right. So going back to things that we can show now. So let's go ahead and launch ComicBase. So from the start, and I apologize for the monitor confusion on this one. This is the downsides of doing a live stream. This will be why I'll have to recut this entire tip video in addition for time. Is enter the comics in ComicBase, right? At some point in life, set up Sidekick so it knows about your database. So go under Sidekick, say settings, make sure that your database, in that case my first one right there, Pete's Inventory Database right there, make sure you have that database listed. If not, hit the plus, add it as one of the databases that ComicBase, the Sidekick manages. By the way, you'll notice that Sidekick is actually managing 3 different databases for me right now, which is kind of cool because it keeps them all updated, keeps them all in sync, and that's kind of a groovy thing. I dig that a lot. If you don't have more than one database, though, just have one. Everything's good. All right, so basically do that. Make sure you set up on a schedule so it's going to do its work in the middle of the night or whenever. If you want to, if ComicBase is closed, you can go to the main interface in Sidekick and just hit save right now and wait 5-10 minutes. It'll back your database up right at the time. But once it's done that, it gets sent to us in a way that we can then go ahead, crawl through your database, and then we can see what you've got and put that in so that when you launch the mobile app, you'll see it. All right, let's talk about the mobile app now. All right, so that would be number 8. All right, got it here. All right, so the mobile app is this guy right here. It's called ComicBase Mobile. If you don't have it already, go to the Play Store, and it will go ahead and just look for ComicBase Mobile. So basically, when you launch it the very first time, it's going to say, what's your user ID and password? And then give it your ComicBase.com user ID and password. It'll verify that you've got an active account, and then it'll know your list of active databases right up here. Right now I've trimmed this down to just 1. And it'll show you the worth of your collection from the last time that you synced it using Sidekick. And you'll also see any reports that you saved for that collection down below here. Now, if I want to, I can view the reports. Like I say, this used to be the number one way you'd use the program is looking at your inventory in there. These days, though, typically if I want to know whether I've got something, I'm just going to say find item, and then I'm going to go pick a title. I don't know, Batman. I don't know. Let's say Hellblazer, right? All right, so here's Hellblazer. All right, there it is. And then in the list of Hellblazers, it'll tell me which ones I've got and which ones I'm missing. And you'll see that the ones I've got are highlighted. It gives you the quantity, it gives you the conditions for them and so forth. And then you can see the quantity. Anything that's is in a little dimmer or something like that, you don't have, and that's one you're presumably looking for if Hellblazer is interesting to you. Now, if I want to go and I want to add a comic while I'm on the road. Okay, so now this is the other half of the question, right? How do I enter my comics using the app? All right, you got a couple different ways of doing it. All right, first thing is, let's say I'm filling in my collection. I managed to locate a copy of Hellblazer 16. I just go Hellblazer. I can actually type Hellblazer 16. It'll take me straight there. But I could go, pull it up, and here it is, the Fear Machine Part 3, Rough Justice. And I'd say I want to add one quantity. I say what condition I'm putting it in. Yeah, I got it in very fine. Put in my cost, any notes I want, and I hit add. If I do that, then what it does is it queues up. Next time I use ComicBase, it queues up and it says, next time I go and I launch ComicBase and I say check for new for sales and purchases, it's going to see that I bought a copy of Hellblazer 16 on the road, and it'll say, hey, you bought some stuff. You want me to add it to your collection? And then it will automatically integrate that into your collection. You'll see it pop in there. Now, you say, well, what if I forget to do that? And then once again, this is where Sidekick saves your butt, because Sidekick will remember to do the stuff for you automatically if you set Sidekick set up, if you set Sidekick up to check these things for you. All right, and then going back to the app, the other thing, the other really cool way to use this one is you can actually just scan the thing using this as a barcode scanner. Let's go ahead and pull a comic up here. Hopefully something we've got. And of course, what do I bring out to enter it as comic books? Yes, nothing but UK things that are newly acquired and probably aren't even in the database yet. All right, so here's Before Watchmen Omnibus as we pan around my room here. All right, let's see if I can hit this one. All right, there's the barcode. All right. All right. So when it sees, hey, right on, this one caught it. So it doesn't look like we had a picture on file for this one, but at least it got this one. So this is the Before Watchmen Omnibus right here. And basically all I had to do is scan the whole thing. I could say whether add one copy and notice what the cost is and so forth. I could say, well, no, actually I bought this one off Amazon for $50. I hit add and it'll take it from there. All right, now a clever observer has probably noted that even though there was a barcode feature built into the phone, that using an actual barcode scanner is way faster. I literally could just go beep, 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 beep in ComicBase, whereas if I wanted to queue up a lot of barcode entry using the phone, there's a lot of jimmying the phone around, waiting for your hand to stop shaking a little bit, waiting for it to lock onto the barcode scanner and so forth. If you just had a stopwatch out and we're just monitoring how fast it is, you would not want to do a big collection of books, entering them and using the barcode scanner on the mobile app. It isn't like a strike on the mobile app. It isn't a strike on your phone. Your phone is just fine. It's just that your phone has to do a lot more to recognize that there's a barcode out there than a barcode scanner does. Barcode scanner just needs to look. It knows it's looking for barcodes. It's not looking for general purpose images. And so it's just looking for a certain pattern of black and white lines, and it can recognize that in milliseconds. Whereas your phone has to do so much more work to get to the same place. It's a miracle it works at all, but don't expect it to work with the efficiency of an actual barcode scanner. So this is the thing and if you might think I'm just trying to sell barcode scanners. Honestly, I don't care if you buy a barcode scanner from us or anybody else, but if you have a lot of comic books from the 90s on up you need to enter, I would definitely advise get a barcode scanner from somebody. Any barcode scanner that will transmit all the human readable digits and not add anything else will work with ComicBase. The ones that go wrong usually go wrong because they don't properly transmit what's called the supplemental. It's the 5 digits at the end of the barcode. Let me go ahead and bring this guy up to the camera again. This is not going to work. There's no way. Good grief, it almost is focusing. But these guys right over here, the small smudgy ones on the right, those are the ones you're looking for. I'm going to reset the focus so it knows I'm here. But where barcode scanners you just grab off Amazon or eBay, typically go wrong is they typically don't always get the supplementals on the right. So yeah, do definitely get a barcode scanner from someplace if you've got a lot of books from the 90s on up. If your collection is like from the 60s, don't bother. It's not going to help you much because 60s they didn't have barcodes. 70s and 80s, 70s they had some barcodes, and 80s they had more barcodes, but they were a little erratic, and so it's going to be a little bit of a mixed bag. In the 70s, people were late to the game on barcodes, and so it's not as good. There's a lot of duplication of barcodes. They would typically use a 2-digit supplemental that repeated every 12 months. We address that in ComicBase typically. So if you scan a certain comic book from like Captain America of the era, we'll warn you that there's 3 different issues of Captain America which all had that barcode. Which one did you want? And then you choose from those 3, to get the right one. It's a little more cumbersome than with a modern issue, so that's a thing. And then in the 80s, the thing that goofs you up is that they would have the way they would differentiate direct market comic books from returnable comic books, the ones you'd buy at 7-Eleven, would be the presence or the absence of the barcode. So the comic that you bought at 7-Eleven had a barcode, and it could be, if they didn't sell it at the end of the month, they could rip the cover off or just, write down that, yeah, we're returning this, and ship it back, and they could get credit for it. They bought their comic books for a lot less margin. But the local comic store, on the other hand, could buy their comic books for more than half off, but they weren't allowed to return them again. So the way they would, determine which ones couldn't be returned is they'd stick a little picture of Spider-Man or a Captain America shield or a DC logo down there where the barcode should have been. What it means for us, though, is if your collection from the 80s, and so a lot of them where you would expect to see a barcode on them won't, because they'll have a little Captain America shield, and that'll jam you up on that. But if for anything past about 1992, though, yeah, barcodes are absolutely the way to go as far as getting your collection entered fast. All right, I've beaten that one to death as usual, and I've just about run out of time. I'm going to check the chat and see if there's anything else right now. Let's see here. Getting so much lag. Clear the cache, no change. Sorry about that. All right. Hey, watching the comic live stream. Well, new comics, new welcome ritual for me. Can't believe we're already at live stream number 53. Neither can I. Let's see. Greg says the only time I use the barcode on the phone is when the UPC on a particular item isn't in the usual format for comic UPCs, like 2 Mars. Absolutely. Okay, and let's see. Well, it's great to have on the phone rather than taking printouts to the store. Absolutely. Mark D with a C. Cool. All right, so I'm going to start wrapping it up there. I did want to give one final answer, and I'm going to end with a bummer answer, but it's one that came up in the forums just right before showtime, which was, how do I do a search and view not just some items, but view all, like if I want to find everything that Marvel has published, whether it be a book, a magazine, or a or a comic book, how do I do that find? And the answer is you can't. Unfortunately, this grid over here, which is what you call the spreadsheet looking part over here, it's tied to, and the good and the bad of it is it's tied to data, so that when I change stuff right here, it's going to automatically change the thing that's behind it. So if I type in versus Time Trapper and I change it so it's versus Snapper Keeper, that as soon as I exit that field, it's going to update your database. But what that means, though, is it's expecting all the things in that grid to be of the same sort of thing. I can't mix and match. We mentioned earlier that books and magazines and comics can have all sorts of different fields. If I want to give y'all the flexibility of being able to display whatever fields you want here, it also means that if I pulled back a list which included things from magazines and books and where else, there'd be a bunch of things that I'd be bringing back under columns that don't make any sense because they don't exist in that particular thing. And honestly, it's not a problem we can solve in the immediate future. So it's just a limit of the program. We don't have any searches that will allow you to search across boundaries. So you'll notice whenever you do anything like a find, the very first thing we always ask you is, well, what is it you're finding? Are you finding books? Are you finding comic books? Are you finding magazines? I don't have a way of saying, can I find everything? It's not. It's just a limitation of the the tech we're built on. Maybe someday we'll come up with a really, really slick and elegant way of managing all the bizarre cases. that allows us to bring something back. Typically, if you wanted to do a search across these things, you would really, really, really limit the things you're allowed to show in the lists, so that you would show only the things that were common. Like for instance, everything in the database has an item number, a condition, a quantity, a cost, so forth, notes, etc. If I were only bringing back those things, it'd be pretty easy to solve the interface problem of how to make it so you could view them and modify them and so forth. But if I'm going to allow you to just have random stuff in here, and as you guys know, you can go ahead and customize what you see under the columns to view to show anything at all that belongs to that particular type of collectible. That means I'm going to get into lots and lots of cases where there's stuff in here that I can't really let you modify, or honestly, even showing the column makes no sense because that collectible doesn't have it, and it becomes very difficult to do. So anyway, that's so ending a little bit of a bummer, but yeah, the answer is it's a limitation of the program. There is no way to search across categories. And even if you do something like, say, I'm going to add in, I'm going to do a mass entry of books and magazines and things like that, we actually finesse the issue going the other way. Like for instance, I can say add by barcode, and I can beep in, I could grab a book, a comic book, a magazine, and you would see that it would show the title of the item, the quantity I'm adding, and so forth else, the selling price, because all these things have those things, right? But if I say display items after saving here down at the bottom, and I hit go, and I save the items, and that thing contained a book, a magazine, and a bunch of comic books, it's going to show only the things that correspond to the top item. So if the very first thing you scan was a book, it's going to only show you books that matched, that you just entered. It's not going to show you all of the things. And like I say, that's just a limit of the program. I don't have an elegant way of solving it, but if I think of something, then we'll do something else. All right, guys. Well, I think I'll do a quick check, and I think that's going to do it. All right, guys. Thank you so much. This has been fun as usual. We'll do number 54 next time out, and I'm going to go off and make my meeting a little late, but it's great to have you here. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.